Robinson, joined by Gail, Eddie, and Alex. So everybody pin away, and Tom, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Okay, you have it recording. Perfect.
Yeah, recording started.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right. So before I jump into a little bit about what makes me happy, I also wanted to share with you, what we at Swipe at Work, and I'll do an introduction real quick here, but what we do at Swipe at Work is we have a daily meeting, and it's with the sales reps and sales rep, and we do, pipeline review and what have you. And as you all know, a lot of sales reps can just go on and on. And so what I've also done is created a background. So if I need to leave the Teams meeting, I just put that up there. Rob still
Dude,
thinks
that is awesome.
I'm there. I had all that.
That's great.
That is awesome.
You
You gotta do different emotions too. You gotta like angry Tom and happy Tom and.
I saw one where somebody had it. It just has it as the that connecting thing you see, but it just says connecting and it's black. So it just says that the whole time. And he did a picture of that screen, and he just uses that.
That's awesome.
This way he doesn't get in trouble with his boss when he can't connect because he's trying to connect.
And all right,
Except your background's different on your office.
I have a blank wall in my new office.
Okay, and just so you all know, I do attend Teams meetings, and whether I'm invited or not. And so, if you're interested in renting any space behind me, business,
Credit card revenues are down.
It is backwards. It is backwards.
Is it Tom? Is it backwards?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Man, I thought I did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's if you put a mirror, then it's 203 something something something.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into my presentation here, and let's see. And what makes me happy? Well, first of all, my name is Tom Robinson. I am the head of sales at Swipe at Work. I work for the credit card processing division. And let's see here. Swipe. Where is that presentation? And while I pull that up.
Hey Adam, if you record the teams, do you get the virtual backgrounds too? Let me know when you record. It would be interesting.
Okay. All right. Again, my name is Tom Robinson. At Swipe at Work, the credit card processing division. I've been with Swipe Net at Work for it'll be 2 years next month in May. I work out of the New York City office, and I live in Connecticut. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. So I would say probably about times a week on average. I commute into the city and work out of the office there on the west side. So typically my day starts around sometime between 4 and 4:30. I get up and then I go to the gym. I work out for about 60 to 90 minutes, depending on which train I'm going to take into the city. And then after I work out, I take a shower right there at the gym. The train station happens to be literally right next door to where I work out, so I park on the train station, hop on that train, take about an hour, and I'd say on average an hour and 20-minute train ride into New York City, and then I walk from Grand Central over to the office on the west side, which is just under a mile. So I've done a few things before most people had their first cup of coffee, but you could probably tell I'm an early bird. I like to get my day started. All right, so this is my wife. She had this sign made, and I'm not even sure where that place is and when she had it done, but I didn't notice it hanging in our wall in our family room, and so I thought that was a good way to start it. I'd like to start off with my parents, as well as my in-laws, my parents, Edna and Jerry Robinson. They're both deceased. My mother died back in 1993 of cancer when she was 56 years old, and then my dad just passed away about 2 years ago. Actually, it was 2 years this 19th of April, and at 82 2 years old. But they obviously played a major part in my life, influenced maybe the person that I am today, give me a lot of the values and the core ethics that I have today, and so that's partly why I am the person I am, and part of that is that I like to have a positive attitude and outlook on life, and I certainly got that from them because they both had it. Now, my in-laws, both from originally from Italy. A town called San Felice, and it's about, I think, an hour. I've never been there, but from what I understand, it's about an hour south of Rome. They both were born and raised there. It's a small village up in the mountains, and then her father, Vincenzo, or Vinny, as he was called. He actually was a World War II veteran. But what was interesting is that he was the only World War II veteran I've ever met that actually fought on the Italian side of the war. And as you probably remember, we were against the Italians and the Germans. So he fought in the Italian army in North Africa, and until he was captured. He was captured in North Africa by the British. And what was interesting is that he served or was in a prison camp for about 4 years, I think it was, and he was in the same prison camp as his younger brother Dan, but for that full period of time. But neither one of them knew that each was in the same prison camp. It was so big, and I guess they restricted, a lot of their movements or what have you. But they were literally in the same prison camp and had no idea that they were until they got back home were freed and got back home to Italy. And then after the war, he did some things back at home in Italy. One of them being he married Maria, and so in 1957, Vinny decided to follow his older brother's footsteps and move to America. So not speaking a word of English and only knowing his brother here, who was living in Stamford, Connecticut at the time, he left his wife and two small boys back in Italy to start a new life. And so he came over here, lived with his older brother, and found a job. His brother found him a job doing the same thing that he was doing, just in another location. And then after 2 years, he had saved enough money that he had Maria, and then and at that time it was only one boy, Frank, my wife's older brother, come live or move to the United States. Unfortunately, one of the boys had died in an accident, and so Maria and Frank came to America 2 years after Vinny did, and Vinny is it's an inspiration to me for what he did, moving to a country, not knowing the language, not understanding it, and just making a new life, and then saving enough money on his own, then saving enough from the son over, and then what he did for a living for many years is he shined shoes. That's right. He carried a shoe shine box. His brother got him this job. His brother had this job as well, and then he had the CBS building in Manhattan as well as the Sony building in Manhattan. So he would take the train from Stamford, Connecticut, down into Connecticut, and go to the CBS building, and then just go around to the offices and shine shoes of the executives. He did that for, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years or something like that. And he saved his money over time. He bought a house, and then he bought a piece of property that had a storefront down at the bottom, and it had multiple family units at the top. So I think there's like 10 family units, apartments in this commercial building, and the downstairs is a deli. Originally, when he bought the building, he opened up a deli there and started running the deli, had his kids come in and run it for him while he went to the city and shined shoes. And the man, every day that he woke up, he worked. A very hardworking man. And then my father was a captain in the St. Louis Fire Department. He did that for 31 years, and what they have a test, they call it the captain's test, and so to determine who is going to be eligible for a promotion, I mean everyone's eligible, but you have to take this test. Then the highest scoring people is, obviously the people that are going to get the promotions. Any captain's positions come up, they're going to take the person that got the highest grade and the second highest, and so on and so forth on how they. And this test is very elaborate. And my dad ended up scoring third on it and ended up becoming a captain. And like all new captains, what they typically is they assign you to the busier houses, the houses that have the most fires, the most action in it. Some of the older captains like the less busy houses because you have to do nothing but watch TV and hang out, play ping pong, volleyball, things that they literally did at the firehouse. And my dad, over the years, had an opportunity to move to one of those slower houses, but he chose to stay at the busier house because he felt that, he was contributing and wanted to be involved in helping people. So I thought that was interesting that he passed up an opportunity. This is my wedding picture. This is my brother on the left, Jerry. He died about 11 years ago, actually in March. He was 51 years old. He had a massive heart attack. And died. There's me in the middle, and then my father, and then my younger brother, who's my best friend. He's about 20 months younger than me, Marty, and he still lives in O'Fallon, Missouri. There's a wedding picture. There's my father, and there's my mother. She had terminal cancer at this stage, but she was well enough to be able to come out from St. Louis, where I originally grew up, to attend our wedding. And then there's my grandmother, as well as my two brothers and my wife there. Just a couple pictures of my family here. I've got 3 boys. Got a Tommy who is 25 years old. Actually, he'll be 25 in September. Chris, and he's graduated from the University of Keene. There's his graduation picture right there. Or excuse me, Keene State College in Keene, New Hampshire. He now lives with his girlfriend and Andover, Mass, and works for a company. He's actually in sales as well. And then my middle boy, Christopher, he'll be 22 in July, is a senior at Elon University in North Carolina. And then I have my youngest son, Matthew, who is a senior in high school. So this pandemic is really kind of screwing us up because Christopher should have been graduating in May, and Matt should have been from college, and Matt should have been graduating from high school in June of this year. And this is actually Chris's high school graduation right there. Again, here's my 3 boys. This is what really makes me happy is hanging out with these guys. We do a number of things, which I'm going to go through here real quick. One thing that we did recently, we did this last fall in 2019, is we went to Bear Mountain State Park in upstate New York, right up there near West Point. I was trying to think of West Point. And I, we like to go up there every once in a while, and there's an observation tower that you can go up and you can see the Hudson River flowing down into the New York area. Here's a picture recently of my family, my wife there, and my 3 boys. And these are my 2 brother-in-laws. The gentleman in the middle with the mustache is her older brother, Frank, who, like I said, was born in Italy. And then her older sister, by about 5 years. Lucy's husband is Chuck. I get along with these guys really well. I consider them brothers, and we have a good time and enjoy each other's company. So I've been lucky to have that type of family. This is the clan all together. I think this was at a Christmas or a Thanksgiving before Christmas there, but that's Chuck, Frank, and my family, our kids, all there with Grandma. There, and my father-in-law Vinny had passed away as well about 11 years ago, so he wasn't around for that. One of the things that we like to do a lot is it's traditional. It's the day after Christmas. We like to go down to New York City. The last, I'm say 10 years, we've been spending the night. Prior to that, the 10 years before that, we just went down for the day. We drive down into the city and we do, whatever. We go to a museum or we go to a play. We go to, we'd have lunch or we'd have dinner. Now, like I said, the last 10 years, we've been actually renting a hotel room around the Times Square area and like to travel and walk around in the city. And this is Tommy's living girlfriend right there. Here's another one. You can probably tell that these boys were raised by somebody originally from St. Louis with the St. Louis Cardinal stocking caps on. Matt's got the St. Louis blue. Tommy is a Mizzou sweatshirt on. So that was one of the years that we went down for Christmas. This year, last Christmas, Christmas 2019, we actually went to the play Dear Evan Hansen, and Tommy's girlfriend again joined us this year. So that was pretty cool. We caught a matinee, then we went to dinner. Doing that. Another thing that we do every year is we take a family vacation. So my father, when he was living, I was living in St. Louis. My younger brother was living in St. Louis, and then my older brother lived in Phoenix, and with his wife and kid. So what we did is every year we would get together for a family vacation. And the first, I want to say 4 or 5 years, we would kind of mix it up. We go to Florida. We went to Gulf Shores. And then eventually we went to Myrtle Beach, and everybody liked Myrtle Beach. And so we decided to just go to Myrtle Beach every year for our family vacation. So I'm going to say probably for the last 12, maybe 14 years, every summer we would, everyone would meet. We'd rent a big house. We'd all stay in the same house and do a family vacation for a week down there, which was pretty cool. This is a picture from our first family vacation. It was in Gulf Shores. This is actually before my wife and I were married, Mary Ann. And as you can see, my mother was living and was there for that, and my older brother. These are his kids right here. He had 4. He had a girl and 3 boys. And then this is a picture from our last family vacation back in 2018. So you can see my father in the middle there, and just a few more people. Like my brother had 4 kids, and I had 3 there. And not everybody every year could make it. For the most part, we had a majority though that they could come, and it's for the whole family. It was a major highlight for everybody in the year. Another thing that I like to do is I like to get out on the water. I have a boat. It's just a 20-foot Key West, and we live in right off of the Long Island Sound. Fairfield, Connecticut is on the shore, and so our town has a marina and a ramp. I trailer my boat. I don't slip it. Do have slips. I could rent that. I think this is like 4 or 5 years, but I'm not really interested in keeping my boat in the water. I have no problem trailering it because there is a lake that I also like to go to and put my boat into. But I would say the majority of the time that we spend on the water is Long Island Sound. And, here we are. This happens to be, I think this is 2 years ago. And this is, we're out anchored, and you can see all the other boats is because we were waiting for it to get dark because these were the 4th of July fireworks. Our town puts on a fireworks display from the beach, or actually a barge out in the water, but a lot of people get out on the beaches to observe the fireworks, and then those that have boats, will go out on the water and watch the fireworks. And so it's kind of cool that Chris was born July 1st and Matt was born July 2nd, 4 years apart. But 4th of July, and a lot of times actually, the fireworks displays on the same day as their birthday, or one of their birthdays. This is the dawn, the sun setting there. That's the Fairfield and the distance, and we're out in the water there. and that's Chris's girlfriend. And I would say of all three boys, Chris is the one that uses the boat the most. He likes to fish, and then he also likes to go out with his friends, tubing there. And then the third thing that we like to do a lot of as a family, and what I really enjoy is going to athletic events, in particular St. Louis Cardinal games. This year, we went to Wrigley Field. My nephew, the one in the Blues jersey right there, he was getting married in St. Louis. So we flew to St. Louis. Actually, what we did is Matt and I, right here in the middle, we flew to Chicago. Matt, my brother picked us up at the airport. Then we drove to Wrigley Field. We caught a matinee or an afternoon game of at the Cubs playing the Cardinals. And then after the game, we drove to St. Louis, which is about a 5-hour drive. And then the next day, my nephew got married. So that was a pretty good, cool trip. And these two of my brother's sons live out by Jeff Cox out in Utah, the great state of Utah, as Jeff likes to have us call it. And Adam and Jordan live out there. Here's Chris and I. This is actually at Busch Stadium, and I didn't mean to go that fast there. This is at Busch Stadium in St. Louis about 2 years ago. We attended a ball game. Here is Tommy and Matthew, and this is at PNC Field in Pittsburgh, attending a game. We happened to be traveling through Pittsburgh at the time when the Cardinals were in town. So we convinced my wife to take a little bit of a detour so that we could go to the ball game that evening. So that was pretty cool. This is us at this is in the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame that they have right next to the stadium. And again, we were there with our nephews and their cousins, going to the Hall of Fame, St. Louis Cardinals. So that was pretty cool. And we also like to go to Blues games. This was just this last March. We went, the Blues were in town and played the New Jersey Devils. So we went over to Newark and caught the game. Unfortunately, the Blues lost this game. But this was on March 6th, and then they started pretty much closing everything down the next week. So we were just actually lucky to get the game in before they started canceling events like this. And another thing is most of you are probably well aware, and they were excited as we were, that the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup last year for the first time in their history. And my oldest one, Tommy, like I said, lives up in Ann Arbor, Mass. And so we had an opportunity to go to the game 2. So Tommy, Matt, and I went to game 2 of the Stanley Cup game, and that was the first game that the Blues ever won. Prior to that, I think they've been in the Stanley Cup at least twice and got swept both times. Never won a game until game 2 of that series, and then they obviously went on to win that series. Okay, so the one last thing that really makes me the happiest is I like giving out $100 gift cards. Anytime I have an opportunity to give out a gift card, I jump on it. So I've given out gift cards to Danny Barnett, Pat Russo, Tom Dieterle, Daryl McFadden, and a bunch of others. So if you're interested in me sending you a gift card, please send me some credit card statements, and I would be more than happy to send you a $100 gift card. That's another thing that makes me very happy. In other words, we'll take leads.
You snuck a sale in here. Look at you.
Hey, I'm not done selling yet. Okay, so
Jeff, you must be so proud, Jeff.
Well played, my friend. Well played.
You guys get 20 minutes of Tom. I get him all day. It's a beautiful thing.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
I like your 1% discount.
Yes, I know it's a little generous, but we're going to stick with that for the next month, and unless the supply runs down, we'll lower it.
Tom, how many family members did you give that coupon to?
None.
Ah, dude, you're not selling right.
Okay, so that's my presentation. Thank you very much. Sorry about wow, I really ran that long. I apologize for that.
Thank you so much, Tom. That was great.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Everyone.
Although when I went to the
Thanks,
site
Tom.
to download your pictures, the firewall blocked it. So
Thanks,
it's
Tom.
inappropriate.
See ya.
Thanks,
See-
Great job, Tom.
Tom. Thanks.